Welcome to WorkSpan TV. I'm Tonya Adamski, Research Analyst for WorldatWork. Today we'll be discussing the recently released Compensation Programs and Practices Survey. This survey includes information on compensation philosophy, positioning, and pay communication. I'm joined today by Kerry Chou, Senior Compensation Practice Leader here at WorldatWork. Welcome, Kerry.
Thanks, Tonya.
Kerry, we've collected 3 separate years of data on this particular survey. What are some of the encouraging trends that you've seen over the past 9 years?
Well, Tonya, there's a few encouraging trends I'd like to point out. First of all, the number of organizations that have a compensation philosophy is quite high. More than 90% of organizations now have a compensation philosophy. 2/3, 67% actually have a written compensation philosophy. So I think this is excellent news because it demonstrates that organizations are taking seriously the notion that they have to document and follow a design strategy. Second of all, in terms of variable pay, 84% of organizations are using variable pay. It's a great tool, both in terms of making sure that your payments are affordable in case you have bad years, and it also allows organizations to steer more dollars towards their high performers as incentive plans and so forth pay out well in terms of achieved goals. Lastly, I think we've seen some great gains in pay for performance. Organizations that pay their high performers at 150% of average performers is now at 70%. And in fact, we have 25% of organizations that pay twice as much to high performers in terms of pay increases as average performers. So I think pay for performance is alive and well, and these are some very positive trends.
Kerry, you mentioned that the survey results reveal that over 2/3 of organizations have a written compensation philosophy.
Right.
And this seems like great news. However, the survey results also show that the percentage of organizations where most or all employees understand that written compensation philosophy is only 28%. This really seems like a missed opportunity for organizations to help employees understand that written compensation philosophy. Can you give us some more insight on that?
It's fantastic that more organizations are taking the time and expending resources in terms of putting together a compensation philosophy. So often with compensation programs, we spend so much time on the front end designing, developing programs that their communication, which is so important, is often an afterthought. And I think the survey results bear this out. It's, it's all well and good to have a compensation philosophy, but then if it goes on the shelf and doesn't get communicated, we haven't done the employees any good. Once you have a compensation philosophy, then you in turn have to develop a plan to communicate it to the employees, and that is going to serve you much better than obviously just putting it on the shelf.
I'm glad that you mentioned pay communications, Kerry, because what we also see from the survey results is that over 1/3 of organizations are only sharing minimal pay communications. However, we know there's a significant relationship between organizations where few or no employees understand the compensation philosophy and those organizations that are only sharing minimal pay information. So can you help us understand this gap a little bit better?
We do so much planning and forethought on the front end in terms of developing our programs, and then unfortunately communications is a little bit of an afterthought and oftentimes doesn't get the attention it deserves. One of the questions that we asked on the survey is, what methods do you use to communicate pay information to your employees? And we provided them with a number of different options. Verbal communication, written communication, is it brief, is it detailed, and so forth. What the respondents told us is that brief communication, written or verbal, are the most common, yet those same respondents also said that those are the least effective methods. I don't think there is a knowledge gap. There's not a lack of understanding amongst compensation professionals about what are the most effective ways to communicate. It's just a matter of doing it. They know that they're communicating in brief forms, and they also know that that is not effective. What we do know is that there are so many different vehicles to communicate, and that different employees tend to different communications in a more positive way. So we can use video, we can use audio, we can use the intranet, social media. There are many ways to communicate. We just need to be more diligent about doing so.
And find the right pay communications venue for your particular
right.
Employees.
Right.
This was the first year that we collected information on multinational compensation policies and philosophies. What can you tell us about global compensation practices from this survey?
Well, I think this international data, it was a great addition to the survey, first of all. And I think one of the takeaways from the survey in terms of the international data is just the level of consistency that organizations are trying to achieve. From a pay-for-performance standpoint, for example, we found that 85% of organizations are using the same performance appraisal process worldwide. And I think this is very telling and a great sign for organizations, because we are becoming a global workforce. You're moving employees both within your country, to different countries, from different countries. And to the extent that we have a common appraisal system, it's much easier for organizations to move talent. Also, with a pay philosophy standpoint, 75% of organizations use a common pay philosophy worldwide. So although we may not be delivering compensation in exactly the same way in different countries, I still think that having a common overarching strategy for pay worldwide is for the betterment of organizations.
Thank you, Kerry, for sharing your insights on the Compensations Programs and Practices Survey. For Research in Brief and WorkSpan TV, I'm Tonya Adamski.